Have you ever wondered what would happen if you actually followed all those success habits people talk about? Not just for a day, not for a week, but for 30 straight days. So I decided to try it. For 30 days, I committed to 10 habits that successful people swear by. And what happened surprised me, because some habits changed everything and others were a complete waste of time. So here's what happened. Honestly, the results surprised me. Not because the habits were complicated, but because most of them were incredibly simple. They were habits I'd heard 100 times before, but never took seriously enough to actually do consistently. Okay, let's begin. The first habit was waking up 1 hour earlier. I know we have heard this multiple times, but this habit changed how I start my day. At first, it felt terrible. I was tired, unmotivated, and questioning why I was even doing this. But after about a week, something interesting happened. I stopped feeling rushed. Instead of starting my day reacting to everything around me, I felt like I was actually in control. I learned to calm my nerves, which made a big impact on my day. That extra hour became the most productive part of my day. The second habit was daily exercise. Nothing extreme, just moving my body every day. I started with a 10-minute walk, then gradually increased it to 30 minutes. What shocked me wasn't the physical change, it was the mental change. I had more energy, better focus, and I found myself procrastinating less. The third habit was planning my day the night before. I decided what to wear, what to eat, and mapped out the most important tasks for the next day. By removing all those small decisions, I started each morning with clarity instead of chaos. My day felt simpler, and I wasn't wasting mental energy on things that didn't really matter. The fourth habit was setting my top 3 priorities every morning. This habit might have had the biggest impact of all, because I used to think being busy was being productive. But what I realized was that I was spending time on things that felt important, but didn't actually move my life forward. So I categorized my top 3 priorities to include one activity that helped me move my body, one money-making activity, and one activity from my core task list. Once I focused on these 3 things that mattered most, my productivity skyrocketed. The habit was tracking every dollar I spent. I used to buy a coffee every single day, and that accounted for nearly $25 to $30 a week, which means over $200 a month. And some days that would accompany a snack or a random purchase. Tracking my daily spending helped me to realize where my money was going. By the end of the first week, I realized I was spending money on things I barely even remembered buying. I became old school. I started carrying cash instead of paying by card. Paying by cash hurt me a lot, and this really moved the needle to less spending each day. Then came one of my favorite habits, the 24-hour rule. Every time I felt the urge to buy something online, I added it to my cart and walked away. No checkout, just wait. At first, it was difficult because the excitement of buying something new was still there, but after a day or two, that excitement usually disappeared. In fact, there were times I completely forgot the item was even in my cart. That habit taught me a valuable lesson. If you still want it tomorrow, it might be worth buying. But if you've already forgotten about it, you probably never needed it in the first place. The next habit completely changed the way I think about success and money. Instead of listening to music on my way to work, I started listening to YouTube videos and podcasts about personal finance, investing, and the stories of successful entrepreneurs. At first, I didn't think 20 or 30 minutes a day would make much of a difference. But over time, I noticed something had changed. My mind stopped focusing on problems and started looking for opportunities. I found myself thinking more about how to earn more, save more, and invest more. It was like I had slowly reprogrammed the way I saw money. The eighth habit was something I focused on my payday. The moment I got paid, I would immediately move 10% into savings before I even spend on anything. That made a big difference in how I manage the money I get. The next habit was something I started, but I couldn't continue. This was trying to read for 20 minutes. But I found this a bit too much, see? Not every habit would work for everyone. That's why it's important to try several habits before realizing what would work. Because what worked for me may not work for you. But still, it's worth trying it out. And finally, the habit that made the biggest difference. This one completely changed the way I thought about money. For the longest time, I believed my income was limited to my salary. If I wanted to earn more, I thought I had only 2 options: wait for a pay rise or find a higher paying job. But during those 30 days, I started asking myself one simple question every single day: what can I do today that could increase my income? That one question changed my perspective. Instead of seeing my salary as my only source of income, I started looking for opportunities everywhere. I began thinking about learning new skills, creating content, starting a side hustle, helping people solve problems, or investing in things that could generate income over time. I realized that wealthy people don't just work for money, they constantly look for ways to make money work for them. Sometimes all it takes is asking yourself a better question, because the quality of your questions often determines the quality of your future. So here's the lesson after my 30-day experiment. Not every habit worked. For example, I tried planning every minute of my day, and honestly, it made me feel stressed. The moment something unexpected happened, the entire plan fell apart. That's when I learned something important. Success isn't about copying someone else's routine. It's about finding what works for you. By the end of the 30 days, I wasn't a millionaire. I didn't magically become successful overnight, but I was more disciplined, more focused, more productive, and most importantly, I trusted myself more. Because every time you keep a promise to yourself, your confidence grows. And that might be the real secret behind success. It's not one big decision. It's hundreds of small decisions made consistently. So here's my question for you. If you could commit to just one habit for the next 30 days, what would it be? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow for more content on money, success, mindset, and personal growth.